Welcome into this carrier update. I'm Tony Mulvey, joined by Thomas Wasson. And Thomas, one of the talking points that you had yesterday was talking about the spread between contract and spot and how it's too wide, where it needs to get back into this more normal range. And I say normal being, I say 2019, but 2019 really wasn't a normal year either. But at least it's an operating range that's, I guess, the benefits of playing in the spot market from a shipper's perspective are kind of gone. And then from a carrier perspective, playing in the spot markets, it's viable if you had to do it. And right now we look at the spread between spot and contract rates at 74 cents. You were talking yesterday between that 30 and really 45 cent range. I know in 2019 it was 42 cents. So just what does this mean? A spread this wide, what does it mean for the market?
Well, it means there's more room to fall. I think that for your casual observer, folks who don't know, contract typically is going to pay better than spot because, well, if I'm going to give up my optionality, I'm going to go with, I want to be paid for it.
Yep.
And so one thing that's important to note, 74 cents, I really like that between 25 and 40 cents is our kind of in the money range, so to speak. But what this kind of illustrates is, we heard carriers talk about their quarterly earnings. We talked about Q2. It was not looking good. Well, if, all things being considered, it should get a little bit worse moving into Q3 because there's opportunities. Now, the question is, how will carriers be able to hold on to this business? As we're going to see in our next chart, how far have we really fallen on contracted rates? I found out how bars worked, but I didn't do a good job of explaining with a note which year it is. So the biggest thing is right now that we've fallen since last year around like 18-ish% maybe. And compared to the 2020 and 2019 rates, compared to looking at 2020, about 10% higher than they were and 14% higher than 2019. That's the big question for me. Are we going to see this level off because of inflation and other aspects? Carriers' costs have gone up. Are shippers going to be understanding? There's two ways you can look at it. One will be it's going to go further lower and carriers are going to have a really rough Q3, or two, the new normal level may go from a 40 cents to a 50-ish cent spread because costs have risen.
Yeah, you may be resetting that baseline, but I think you're spot on. I mean, ultimately, even if it is 50 cents, right, you're still talking about a 24-cent spread that needs to come off, like it needs to narrow by 24 cents. Spot rates really have been reluctant to kind of move from this level that they've been in for the past few months, which signals to me that a lot of the spread's going to have to come from contract rates. Donnie and I have talked about, where do contract rates really level out and start to bottom? He thinks below, I think he said $1.95. I said above $1.95. I think it's going to be right at $2, slightly above it. But, I mean, ultimately, either way, there's still room for this to fall. And the interesting part around contract rates is as new contracts come online and the old ones fall off, right? You see that's why you see the stair step downs throughout the whole, month to month. New contracts are coming on at lower prices as the old ones fall off at the higher prices. So instead of it moving like what we see with spot rates, right? This gradual decline that continues its decline. It's more of a stair-stepped approach.
We can see that on our rates. Look at how some of these RFPs go into effect, whether your RFPs are in the middle part of the year or the ending part of the year. You can see these movements in rates. I am very curious to see how this is going to turn out because obviously this is a nationwide all-in contracted rate. So someone's going to say, well, Thomas, if you look at Heartlands, they were 2 something and Night Swift 2 something. Well, good for them because their average length of haul and everything else taken into consideration can goose the adjustment. This is a great idea of sentiment, how the market is going. It's just like with our spot rates. We want to know direction to try and predict how conditions will either improve or deteriorate.
Absolutely. Well, Thomas, thank you so much for this update. We'll be sure to check in with you again a little later. Right now, we'll hand things back over to Kaylee Nix.